Draining the swamp now, our nearly every night focus on cleaning up Albany. And could there be a glimmer of hope on the horizon? After the corruption convictions of Sheldon Silver and Dean Skelos, two of the most powerful legislators in Albany, we got crickets from Albany when it came to combating corruption, especially from Governor Cuomo, who almost seemed resigned to Albany doing little or nothing. But there was some reason for optimism Tuesday when Cuomo met with some good government groups talking about a possible transparency agenda that he might push at the State of the State address in January. One idea being floated is to make the Assembly and the State Senate a full-time legislature, complete with a pay raise, greater disclosure on spending, an end to slush funds, and more. Yesterday, I sat down with Long Island Assemblyman Charles Levine, who is pushing a bill to do just that. We talked about his proposal.
There have been many studies done of the problems that legislative leaders have, and it's not just in New York. I mean, we've seen in South Carolina, two speakers of the Massachusetts House have also been convicted of crimes involving corruption, and others throughout the country as well. So there's a fellow named Alan Greenblatt, who is a former NPR reporter who writes for Governing Magazine, and Governing Magazine's a very reputable, nonpartisan magazine, and earlier in the year, he had an article which was, how do you account for the fact that so many legislative leaders are getting in serious trouble? New York has taken the lead in this because 6 of the last leaders of the New York State Senate have been convicted of crimes, although in all fairness, one had that conviction reversed, and now the Speaker of the New York State Assembly has been convicted as well. So the two salient points that Mr. Greenblatt, who's an expert on state and federal legislatures, makes is too much power and too little scrutiny. So my contention is that if we have a full-time legislature, we will lessen the power of the leaders of both legislative houses, and we will increase scrutiny. And how will we lessen their power? Well, as our structure is set in terms of the number of legislative days that we work, we will this year work a total of 57 legislative days. And those 57 days occur between January the 6th and June the 16th or thereabout. So it's a few days each week, and then half the year we're not in Albany at all. When we're not there, looking over the shoulders of the legislative leaders, they simply have too much power.
That was just a small portion of my interview with Assemblyman Levine. We just didn't have enough time to play it all. For the complete interview, search YouTube for Richard French and then click videos. So the question now is, will this plan work, and will it pass in Albany? Will anything pass in Albany? For answers, let's turn to tonight's panel. We're joined by Jerry McKinstry, who was recently named Managing Director of the November Team. It's a Republican-leaning political consulting group run by friends of the show, Bill O'Reilly and Jessica Proud. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Dominic Carter is here, political journalist and author, as is C. Scott Vanderhoff. He is an attorney and former 5-term Rockland County executive. Gentlemen, welcome all. So, full-time legislature. Scott, let me start with you. Is that enough of a step to actually curtail some of the corruption in Albany?
No, it's not, because corruption really comes from the basis of anybody who has a potential conflict, whether you have money coming in or not. And it's not just the leaders. It's anybody up there having connections with people. So I think there may be a way and a role for capping a certain amount of outside income. At least in that way, you have some sort of control.
Would this proposal help? It's clearly not a silver bullet, at least that's what you're saying, but would this at least help staunch some of the corruption?
I don't think so. I don't think it stems from whether you're part-time or full-time, and I don't think I don't think I'm ready to pay full-time for 57 days worth of work. Okay, number one. Number two, I mean, this is not supposed to be a full-time political deal. It's supposed to be, the citizen goes and does the work on behalf of the citizens, and it's part-time. And I don't think the individual money issue is the issue. It's how you get the money and how you handle conflicts. Every assemblyman and every senator has a conflict from time to time in serving in that capacity. That's true of every elected official.
Jerry, do you think there's enough movement in Albany to actually push something like this forward? Would this pass? Will anything pass Albany right now?
Will anything pass? I don't know that there's an appetite right now for a full-time legislature. I think, in my own view, I think rewarding legislators at this moment in time, giving them pay raises, and full-time status probably isn't the way to go. The governor himself has said that this is a hard sell, that he didn't think it was going to happen. He supports a full-time legislature. I mean, I think disclosure is important, limiting the amount of outside income, and then we have to talk about term limits as well.
Dominic, this proposal, the full-time legislature, it might have prevented Shelley Silver because he had the second job outside as an attorney, and that led to some of his corruption problems. Wouldn't have done anything on Dean Skelos, would it?
Okay, but wait, I'm still trying. I'm to be honest with you, I'm lost in terms of what the assemblyman said. His premise of if the legislature is there full time, they can keep an eye on legislative leaders. What does that have to do with corruption?
Well, it would also stop them from having secondary jobs. The Shelley Silver wouldn't be able to have the second job as an attorney, which then led to some of the money that was going around.
It's a start, but when we spoke to longtime political consultant George Arts, he put it this way: I concur, I agree. A crook is a crook. People are always that have a tendency to push it. They're always going to look for ways to push the letter of the law, the limit of the law. And frankly, now that they're convicted, that's just not going to stop it.
But that sounds almost like what Governor Cuomo was saying, that bad guys are going to do bad things. I mean, and it almost makes it seem like there's nothing that can be done.
Well, you see, the key to that, I agree, is disclosure. You know, you've got to have strong rules and laws of disclosure of outside income. Any conflicts, any ethical issues should be fully out on the table, and everybody, the public, should have a chance to see it. And once you do that and you make a mistake, and you've done as Silver did, and you don't reveal those conflicts, that is a violation of the law, and you could be prosecuted.
Is there a model that we can take from elsewhere? Is the congressional model in Washington, would that be more effective than what New York has in place now, or is there another system either from another state or another county or level of government that you know of, Jerry?
I think if you're talking about Congress or even the county, I mean, the county's part-time, but they have some pretty strict ethics laws. Congress is full-time, so I'm not sure. I mean, if we're talking about that, Congress is full-time. I don't think we want the Albany legislature as full-time. Again, I can't emphasize disclosure. I think there should be, lawmakers should not be allowed to do business with any company that does business with the state. They shouldn't be able to represent them as lawyers. There should be at least 2 or 3 years before they can, become lobbyists or represent them in any capacity.
I'm curious, and I want to go around the table. It sounds like Governor Cuomo is going to mention something about this at State of the State. You would almost, it would be kind of surprising if he didn't. I guess the question is, will he propose something at State of the State to combat corruption, and will that pass? And I'll start with you, Scott.
Well, he has not been very forceful on this issue, in my view. Even after Dean was convicted, there was no comment from the governor. I mean, he doesn't come out and say, we need to have reform. He's really been backpedaling on this thing. And maybe now he's saying, well, I'll do it all in my state of the state. But the fact of the matter is he has to have a pretty robust plan for it to make news. If he does what he does when he was running for office and say, we're going to have to do this, we're going to have to do that, and nothing happens, I think it'll be a failure on his credit.
I know I said I was going to go around the table. I'm not. Do voters care about this? And are voters motivated enough? Because a year from now, next November, every seat in the Senate and every seat in the Assembly is up for grabs. Is this something that voters will remember when they go into the polling place, Jerry?
I think voters care about corruption. I don't think they want their leaders being corrupt. The problem in Albany is the districts are so gerrymandered that the Democrats are outnumbered in this particular district. Republicans are outnumbered. There's no way to overturn a lawmaker, to vote them out of office. I mean, we were joking in the green room before that the only way to get them out of office is to indict them.
I hate to be the skeptic at the table, but maybe you need prosecutors like Preet Bharara. David Soares is the district attorney in Albany. Okay? He came in, knight in shining armor in terms of showing up in the courtroom, putting Democrat Alan Hevesy, the state comptroller, behind bars, and then he just fizzled out and away. You need somebody like that to make this work.
Got to leave it there. We're going to pivot. And up next on RFL, party problems, and yes, problems from both parties. First up, the Democrats. Bernie Sanders' campaign is now suing the Democratic Party. His campaign says the DNC is trying to undermine his campaign, and he might just have a point. We'll get to that next. Stay with us.